Yes, my name is Eric Black. I'm with Black & Associates and the Infrared Technical Institute. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is the differences amongst thermal imagers, what thermal imaging is, and how it can be used for boat inspections to locate subsurface moisture and defects within boat structures. And I'm going to tell you how the cameras will lie to you. The price difference amongst thermal cameras today is all over the board. You could spend $40,000 on a thermal camera, you can spend $200 on a thermal camera. And I've got a few thermal cameras that I brought with me today, and I'll pass these around the room so you can see what the differences are. This one is a cell phone-based thermal camera called the FLIR 1. And it has a resolution of 80 by 60. And it will measure temperature differences of 0.15 degrees Celsius, which is 150 millikelvin. And I'm going to make recommendations to you today on what type of thermal imager you should be looking at so that you can locate structural defects and see things that might be beneath the surface. Because infrared only makes surface temperature measurements. If you're trying to look at things that are beneath the surface, like moisture or structuring, you're going to need a camera that can measure smaller temperature differences. And the manufacturer identifies those temperature differences as an NETD, or a noise equivalent temperature difference, is what you'll see on the spec sheets from different manufacturers on thermal imaging. Some will call it thermal sensitivity, some will call it NETD, or noise equivalent temperature difference. And you really want to select a camera with an NETD under 100 millikelvin or 0.1 Celsius. If you're measuring under 0.1 Celsius, then you can measure smaller temperature differences. Thermal imaging has been historically used by the military and by electrical inspectors. And when you're using the camera for that application, you're looking at 20, 30 or more degrees of temperature difference in front of the camera. And you can get away with lower performance systems. Like this one here, again, measures 150 millikelvin or 0.15 degrees Celsius. So when you have heat in front of it, it's very easy to see. But if you're looking at the hull of a boat, you may only have a couple of degrees of temperature difference where there's moisture and where there's dry sections of fiberglass or whatever the boat is constructed of. And you're going to want a camera that has a very low thermal sensitivity. Lower numbers are going to be better for you. And then there's the pixel count of the camera. I would recommend it at least a pixel count of 160 by 120 or greater. To get into the 160, 120 thermal camera market at under 100 millikelvin, you're looking at just over $2,000. Now, you can buy a thermal camera for $200, but I don't think it has enough performance to be used in the marine inspection world. But I want to pass this around the room just so you can see. Oh, you've already got it. You're going to want a little bit more performance out of your camera. This camera that I have here is the TIX 500 series from Fluke. And this camera will measure temperature differences of 40 millikelvin. 0.04 degrees Celsius. And this camera is much higher in resolution as well. It will measure 320 by 240 pixels. So this is measuring 76,000 temperatures at 60 times per second. Whereas that camera is measuring 19,000 pixels 9 times per second. So this camera refreshes itself at 9 hertz. This camera refreshes itself at 60 hertz. So you can scan a lot faster with this camera. I can move it back and forth, and there's very little image smear in this camera as opposed to a slower frame rate system. With this camera, I'm going to pass it around the room as well. This camera has a laser focus system built into it. This is something new that they've been putting into the Fluke thermal imaging line. And what this does is it uses a laser distance measurement and autofocuses based on that distance measurement. When you're focusing your camera, the image will become blurry and sharp if your camera has a manual focus where you can just twist the lens. But when you're looking at the side of a boat, there's not going to be much to focus on. So what you can do with this camera is you can point it at the screen put the laser on the screen and let it go, and it will autofocus for that distance measurement. To get into the laser focus systems, you're going to be looking at about $5,000 or more. And that would be the Fluke TI-200, Fluke TI-300, and 400 series. This one is the 500 series, and the only difference between this one and the 400 is it has a much larger viewing screen. This one has a 5.7-inch diagonal screen. It's the size of an iPad mini, basically. It's touch screen, it has Bluetooth, it has Wi-Fi. You can talk to it and make voice recordings with your images. When you snap an image and save it, you can pair it to your smartphone, and it'll Bluetooth the information right into your smartphone. So this one's got a lot of functionality. And this model here starts at about $10,000. But again, I'm going to make a recommendation to you guys that, that you look at cameras that are about $2,000 or more. That way you don't spend money on a product that's not going to be able to measure temperature correctly or accurately. Once you get above the $8,000 mark, the price kind of skyrockets as you increase performance, and that's when you get up into the $40,000 FLIR cameras and the very, very sensitive high-performance systems. But I'll pass this around the room. What I want you to do with this camera, again, as you're looking with it, is I just want you to squeeze the trigger and let it go, and you'll see a distance measurement at the bottom of the screen. And that way you can kind of play with it and see what the temperature is.
You'd be interested in this. Thermal cameras.
Let me reset my computer here. Turned off on me. So what you're seeing in this screen right now is a 320 by 240 pixel image. It's measuring 77,600 pixels 60 times per second. That's like 3.5 million temperatures per second that the camera is actually measuring. And when you're focusing the camera, the images and temperature, or I'm sorry, the outline of the target and the temperatures will change. There are cameras that you do not focus, like that FLIR One cell phone module. That is a fixed focus imager. And the E series from FLIR, the E4, the E5, the E6, and the E8 are also fixed focus imagers. And I'll pull up a data sheet on that really fast so you can see what the performance of that camera is. So this is what the E4, 5, 6, and 8 look like, and the only difference between the models is really the pixel count. You start with an 80 by 60, and at the max end you get a 320 by 240, and this is the price difference. The E4 is $1,000, the E8 is $4,000. For marine inspections, I would recommend again a minimum of 120 by 160 resolution and thermal sensitivities under 0.1 Celsius. So this one has a 0.06 detector in it, and the sticker on this one is $24.95. We also sell thermal cameras. We sell for Fluke, we sell for FLIR, we sell for Testo. We pretty much cover the waterfront when it comes to infrared equipment. And if you need any assistance with purchasing a camera, you can call us. We passed out some pens with our phone number. And we can assist you with getting the right camera for your application.
Is that a camera or a gun?
This is more of a gun. You do not focus this camera. It is a fixed focus where all you do is squeeze the trigger. But infrared is not just point and shoot. You also have to know what you're scanning and what you're imaging. There are different types of surfaces that will either emit or reflect infrared. And there are what we call high emissivity surfaces, which are good absorbers and emitters of infrared. And then there are low emissivity surfaces, which tend to be good reflectors. I brought with me today a Yeti cup. And this is a very popular cup. I gave these things away as Christmas presents a few years ago. This is a very low emissivity surface. It's a reflector in the infrared spectrum. If you put hot coffee or ice water or iced tea in this cup, it will maintain the temperature of the liquid by decreasing the emissivity and absorption and enhancing the reflectivity. Whenever you're looking at stainless or aluminum or copper or any shiny metal, you're going to see a reflected temperature instead of an emitted temperature. And I've got a piece of aluminum here that I've heated up on my hot plate to show you this phenomenon. And you really do want to get some training with your infrared camera so that you don't make incorrect temperature measurements. I'm going to focus on this target here. For a second. There we go. Sorry about that. Forgot you couldn't see what I could see. Okay. So what you're looking at here is a heated block of aluminum, and I have a vinyl decal of a marlin on it. And when I put my cursor on the vinyl decal, I get a temperature measurement of 160 degrees. You can see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, I have a cursor measurement here at 160 degrees. But if I position this cursor on the aluminum surface, it's going to lie to me. And it's going to tell me that that is 74 degrees. So you really do want to get some training with your imaging equipment. We offer 4-day courses here locally through the Infrared Technical Institute, and we will train you on how to take thermal images and how to understand emissivity and reflectivity so that you don't make an incorrect reading in the field. Because the camera, again, is showing you radiation, not temperature. And some objects will radiate their temperature, and some objects will reflect their temperature. So again, once I put the cursor on the vinyl marlin, I'm getting a temperature of 165 degrees. And once I position it just off of that, it's 75 degrees. So which one is correct? Yes?
What about just spraying that with a non, somebody mentioned a powder?
Yes. Yeah, you can, just like I put tape on the surface to get an accurate reading, you could also put Dr. Scholl's foot powder or arid extra dry deodorant, a temporary modification to a reflective surface, and you can obtain accurate readings that way. You can also use electrical tape or duct tape. Electrical tape has an emissivity of about 0.96, so it's a very good emitter. Everything adds up in this equation to equal 1. But the closer you get to an emissivity of 1, the more accurate your temperature readings will be. And the closer you get to 0, the more error you're going to have in your measurements. Yes?
If you were to spray that decal with like a foot powder, you say, then you would pretty much get a uniform temperature reading?
Yes. Yeah. As long as it's not thicker in one spot and thinner in another, you want to make an even coating with like Dr. Scholl's foot powder might be a little expensive to us.
It doesn't necessarily cool down significantly, so in the end it'll all be pretty much like a wet surface.
It will all be the same temperature, yes.
Yeah. You don't have any foot spray.
I don't. You could take electrical tape and just put electrical tape across it, and if there was moisture behind it, you would see a temperature difference. Now, it also does help significantly if you can get heat into the boat. Okay. If you're working with smaller boats, it's going to be a lot easier. But if let me pull up my folder here. You're going to want to try and get heat into the boat somehow. This is an inspection here that I did for blue water on Kent Island on the eastern shore. And I'm looking at the bow of the boat around the anchor locker here. And there's moisture around that anchor locker. Here I'm just using basic sunlight. Because I'm looking at the top of the boat and it's in the afternoon, the sun is heating the boat up from the top. There are other ways that you can inject heat into the boat. You could put a space heater, like an oil-filled space heater down in the boat for 24 hours prior to the inspection to get some heat into it, because moisture and water is going to resist temperature changes. You've got a different heat capacity where there's moisture trapped in the boat. The dry sections of the boat will heat and cool faster than the wet areas will, because the wet areas have more density to them. So as the boat is heating, as the sun is heating the bow of the boat, the moisture is lagging behind here, and you can see a cooler area, again, around that anchor locker. Or here I have a trim tab. And around the trim tab, I can see a cold spot. As the boat, again, is heating, the moisture is lagging behind. The atmosphere is going to be your enemy when you're doing these types of inspections. There's a better shot of that valve. So again, I can see all that cold around there.
You sure it's moisture in there?
Yeah, you can test it with a moisture meter. You do want to use additional tools to your thermal imager to verify your findings. You can use a hammer. You can use a moisture meter. And when the camera is going to show you where to test. So once you locate an area of suspected moisture, you could take a meter to that location and just test it. What the camera is going to do is it's going to locate a needle in a haystack for you. Instead of running all over the boat with a moisture meter, you could image it with a camera, and then the camera is going to show you where you should test. So I can place the moisture meter here and see if I get different readings on my meter to verify my findings.
Can I ask a question? Did you take a hammer and hit that area?
I did not. I used a moisture meter on that test to verify those findings. I always get scared hitting the boat with the hammer.
No, but the question is that those decks off when might be moisture because of this condensation. It's a plywood deck clay, so it's, plywood comes out of the factory at about 16% moisture depending on where it is. You do have environmental conditions there. However, knowing that you got to there, but the deck was not soft or not hit hard. Back to one of these things you have to use all of your tools, not just one observation.
Yeah, the more tools that you do use, the more you'll be able to verify your findings. That is correct. Yes. Now you also want to be aware of reflectivity. Oh, I'm sorry, was there another question?
So in the winter on a cloudy day, I kind of wait.
No, you can take a space heater and put it inside the boat and get some temperature into the boat. If you're looking at an 80-foot Viking that weighs over 100,000 pounds, you're probably going to have to put 2 or 3 space heaters in that for a period of 24 hours to get enough heat injected into a boat that weighs, 50 tons or more.
With that valve section, that could have been just condensation.
Yeah, that's right. It would have to be a significant amount of condensation, but yeah, it could be condensation, yes. Yeah, wherever there's moisture, it will lag behind, and condensation is moisture. If you can get the boat inside, you can get ideal atmospheric conditions. If you can bring it inside where it's not exposed to the wind and the atmosphere. If it's raining outside, you're not going to find anything if it's raining outside. The rain is going to equalize the temperatures across the surface, and it's going to be very challenging to locate problems. Here I'm just looking at the side of the boat here. It's not showing up too well, but you can see a reflection that says Sea Fox here on the side of the hull, and you can also see it thermally here in the image. But this is sunlight on this side of the boat, and this is a shadow. And again, the sun is going to be your enemy because it's going to heat up the boat in a non-uniform fashion. You're going to get hot spots and cold spots on sunny sides and shady sides of that boat. So you do want to be aware of the heat that the sun is actually injecting into the target surface. So here in this image, I'm looking at the underside, and I've got a temperature difference from spot 3 to spot 2 of 62 degrees and 66 degrees. I've only got a 4-degree temperature difference in this image, indicating a moisture pattern. So you're looking at small temperature differences with the equipment. The thermal palette of an infrared camera is made up of 256 shades of grayscale or rainbow, and the thermal sensitivity is the smallest temperature measurement between 2 pixels. So if your camera measures 1/10 of a degree Celsius and the palette is made up of 256 shades of color, then you're looking at 25.6 Celsius from min to max for the camera to show you the entire palette range. And that in Fahrenheit is almost 50 degrees from min to max. So a camera with 1/10 of a degree Celsius thermal sensitivity needs almost 50 degrees Fahrenheit from min to max to show you the entire palette range. And when you drop below those numbers, the camera will begin to subtract colors from the image. I'll show you an example of that. This is a thermal image that I shot in Richmond of a heated pipe 3 feet under concrete. Hold on 1 second here while my software loads. So this here is a heated pipe again. It's 3 feet under concrete, but you do not have 256 shades of rainbow in this image. You have from blue to red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors that make up that image. And then black and white are my saturation colors. But I only have 1 degree of temperature span in this image, from 70 to 71 degrees Fahrenheit. So when you drop the camera to very low spans, the camera will begin to subtract colors from the palette. But if I have 50 degrees of span in the image, then you're going to see a lot more clarity in the image, and you'll see the entire 256 shades of palette that are coming from the camera or from the equipment. Now, historically, these cameras have been used for military applications or electrical applications where you can look at breakers where you've got 10, 20, 30 degrees or more of temperature difference in front of the camera. But to use these cameras for boat inspections, you're going to want low sensitivity cameras that can measure small temperature differences. The more you spend on a camera, the easier it's going to be to find problems. And again, you want a camera with a millikelvin rating under 100, which is 1/10 of a degree Celsius. And I like to do a lot of fishing, and one of the things that we'll do is we'll analyze the temperatures of the ocean. Again, thermal imaging only measures surface temperatures. It does not see through the ocean, it does not see through the walls, it does not see through the boat. It only measures surface temperatures. So you have to create a surface temperature difference to be able to detect things that are under the surface. So here I'm only looking at the surface temperature of the ocean off of the mid-Atlantic. And there's the Gulf Stream here that comes up from the equator and passes by Florida. It hits the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and it turns northeast. And I like to do a lot of marlin fishing out of Ocean City. We'll fish from this location, but we need to know where the warm and cold water is. So we'll analyze these images off the internet and through pay services like this is ROFS, and we'll analyze these warm and cold water currents that collide off the mid-Atlantic states. When that warm water collides with the cold water, it will create these eddy currents. And if that eddy current rolls into the offshore canyons off Ocean City, the fishing will usually explode with tuna and marlin. And here you can see that warm water again is like a river in the ocean. 2 men fell off a regulator in Nantucket. This is a 26-foot regulator that was found 3.5 years later floating off the coast of Spain. And the Spanish government recovered it. They fell off the boat, swam back to shore, and the boat got caught in that Gulf Stream current. And 3.5 years later, it turned up off the coast of Europe.
They couldn't look 50 trips in a year.
If they found it a year later, it wound up over there. I was told that the gentlemen that owned this boat, they were contacted by the Spanish government to see if they wanted it back, and obviously they had no use for it at this point. But I was told that Regulator paid to have that boat returned to North Carolina so they could use it as a sales and promotion piece.
It was in the Ocean City Boat Show during the Hurricane Sandy, when that boat was just like that on the trailer in the Ocean City Boat Show.
Was it really? That's a great sales piece. If you could say our boat, you know, was at sea for a year, unmanned, and didn't sink. I don't know if I have time. This is a thermal image. It's a deck of a sailboat, and you can see here a 41 to 53 degree temperature difference on the deck, indicating the presence of moisture again. Here I've got a bow thruster.
Question.
Yes.
That last picture, that temperature difference could also be probably a bulkhead there. It could be the difference in the interior temperature of the forward cabin, which maybe doesn't have any port lights, so there's no sun in it, versus the main cabin, which heated up in the sun. Right? I mean, that could be what you could be looking at as a bulkhead under there.
It could be, yes. You are thinking thermally is one of the terms that we like to use in the infrared industry. And you kind of have to become an infrared Sherlock Holmes. The camera is not going to tell you what the problem is, but it's going to show you where you should test with your additional tools.
That was moisture there, the moisture meter, and then the land meter.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the way you want to think when you're
Is it
imaging.
valid to use that as a tool to confirm the moisture when in fact that could be due to something?
All the tools together is, yeah.
All the tools
Yeah,
together.
and that's what I did.
Yeah. Okay.
He's got a picture of that run too.
You can also use these cameras for breast detection
Yeah,
because
I've done that.
You guys want to see that?
Yeah.
These cameras have the ability to detect breast cancer.
how much sensitivity of your camera.
I had like 8
I always get in trouble for showing these images, but if you guys want to see it, I'll show them to you.
Yeah, I think
You see someone
educational.
get the rest of it.
Yeah.
If you suddenly into your breast there.
So- Thermal cameras have the ability to detect breast cancer 10 years before a mammogram can spot it. This was approved by the FDA in 1982, and here we are 35 years later, and you won't hear any hospital or a doctor talking about this because a doctor cannot tell you that that is breast cancer. It could be a bee sting, it could be a bruise, it could be a rash, it could be any other medical condition that causes inflammation. But it does work for this application. It will detect breast cancer. That is breast cancer, yes.
Or is it just an indication that, like with a boat, you've got to verify?
You always have to verify.
All that is just an indication. Hey, maybe we ought to check that out with a biopsy or a mammogram.
That's exactly what I would recommend for that patient. If that were my spouse or my loved one, I would definitely recommend that they go see a doctor and have a biopsy to verify that that is a tumor or a cancer growing.
The reason why I brought that up is because that picture is close to what we do on boats than anything else out there. Just because you can identify the area and you can target it and go look.
Yeah. The camera's just going to show you where to test again. And in order to obtain an image like that, if any of you have a thermal camera and want to image your spouse or your loved one, what you would do is take a baseline image and then have your wife sit in front of an air conditioning unit, like a window air conditioner, and have it blow cold air across her chest for several minutes. And blood vessels will constrict when they're exposed to cold, and tumor vessels will stay dilated when they're experiencing cold. So that's what you're seeing here. It's cold air blowing across her chest, and the tumor vessels are not constricting in this case. So that's how you would take an image like that, is you would have your spouse sit in front of an air conditioning unit for several minutes, and then take a picture, and you can check for temperature differences. Your body is a mirror image of itself.
FLIR 1 do that?
Yeah, FLIR 1 can do that.
Thank you.
But yeah, I always get into trouble for showing this. But,
You don't get any of those surveyors that ask me that.
now, one thing you do want to be careful of when you're imaging is the sun. Again, do not try and take an image like this. You do not want to point your thermal camera at the sun. Trust me, if the sun is hot, you'll just have to take my word for it. But you can damage the sensor in the camera by pointing it at the sun. So don't try and take an image of the sunset with your equipment. You can damage the pixels.
What is the maximum temperature that we can reshoot an uninsulated turbo exhaust over?
Not with all cameras, no. Different cameras have different temperature ratings on them, and you don't want to exceed the temperature rating of your camera by more than 100 degrees. The FLIR 1, for instance, will image up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, so you're not going to be able to image turbochargers with a camera like that. Whereas this camera here will, or I'm sorry, the flip camera in the back will measure 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can image turbochargers with that setup. Let me see if I have another picture here.
Well, mine, I think the 65 is like 1100.
Yeah, 1,132 degrees.
Yeah.
That's close to a turbo, right?
Yeah, all the turbos I've seen are like 350, 400 and wide open throttle.
Here again, I've got a temperature difference around the tower mount. This is a center console node here in this image, and you can see that temperature difference around that mount. Any through-hole fitting you would want to image. For those of you that are going to watch the Super Bowl this weekend, I've been waiting for a few years for this to happen. We had the polar vortex winter a few years ago, and if that were the offense and I were the defensive coordinator and I had my thermal camera on the sideline, I would figure out what number this guy is here, and I would double team his position, because this guy's warmed up. That guy's probably fresh off the bench. This guy's probably fatigued. His legs are all hot. So I would figure out what number he is and double team his position to try and make a play on the field.
That's cheating.
Yeah, I always joke with my students that Belichick will be the first one to try. I always wind up with a Patriot fan. I know there's a Patriot fan in here somewhere. Belichick's actually a local boy. He's from Annapolis, Maryland. So, he grew up just down the road from here.
You want to speak anything about supplementing FLIR cameras with radar and finding people lost in the water?
Sure. FLIR makes thermal imaging cameras for search and rescue or for navigation applications, but these cameras are not going to be the type of cameras that you could use for a boat inspection. These are what we call non-radiometric imagers. They do not measure temperature. They're just used for navigation and for locating people that are in the water. They will see obstructions floating on the surface, but you do not see through the water with these cameras. Again, you only measure surface temperatures. So that's a dredge in Savannah, Georgia.
You can see through fog.
You can see through fog, yes. I have a better picture here where so here I have a drowning man in the water, and you cannot see his body through the water. You can't see through glass with infrared. You can't see through plexiglass with it. You only measure surface temperatures when you look through glass. Infrared can see through some materials that your eye cannot see through, like plastic bags, I've got a plastic bag here. I'm going to use you for my experiment here. What I want you to do is just put your hand up inside that bag, and I'm going to look at you with
Get hand.
Get off your head.
So what I'm going to do is refocus my imager on you. And I'm going to hit my auto button.
Feel better now.
But notice how I can see your hand through the bag. I can see how many fingers you've got up. There are things that infrared can see through that your eye cannot. There are different frequencies that your camera can see that your eye cannot. See a little bit. Focus is absolutely critical when you're making these temperature measurements. So if you do have a camera with adjustable focus, the more you tune the camera lens, the sharper the image will become. So you really do want to practice focusing with your camera as much as possible. But yeah, the camera can do things that your eye cannot. What I'm talking about is all part of the electromagnetic spectrum. These cameras are measuring wavelengths and frequencies above what your eye can see. Your eye can see from 0.38 microns to 0.72 microns, or 380 nanometers to 720 nanometers. And the infrared measurements are larger wavelengths than visible measurements. The electromagnetic spectrum is made up of radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma rays are all frequencies of light. And as the wavelength, the distance between the peaks gets greater, it becomes an ultraviolet or visible or an infrared ray. Now, an infrared ray can actually become a visible ray. If you heat a target up over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it will drop from the infrared spectrum down into the visible spectrum. And that's what you have when you get something that's incandescent. If you take iron and heat it to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it'll glow red. And it's glowing red because it's dropping down into the visible spectrum from the infrared spectrum. Most cameras are long-wave thermal cameras today. They measure a frequency of 7.5 to 14 microns. And again, your eye sees from 0.38 to 0.72 microns. So these cameras are measuring wavelengths that are 10 times greater than what your eye can see. An infrared wave, again, is larger than a visible wavelength. This is the E series, again, from FLIR. The E6 is about $2,500. We usually discount that product down to about $2,200. And it measures temperature to 482 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, it's focus-free. It measures at a frame rate of 9 frames per second. You can scan faster with a 30 hertz or a 60 hertz system. The limit, though, is you cannot travel internationally with a 60 hertz camera. The #1 use for thermal imaging is military applications. The government uses them as targeting and tracking systems, and you cannot take a 60 hertz camera from the United States. Okay? You can take a 9 hertz camera from the United States, or a slower frame rate system like the FLIR 1. But if you get caught at Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. with this blue TIX series, you could be charged with treason, because this camera can be converted into a weapon. I don't like to show those kinds of videos because you're watching people get killed, but Uncle Sam uses more infrared than any other technology put together: electrical, mechanical, marine inspections, electrical inspections. Uncle Sam is the #1 user of infrared. In this thermal image here, this is the access for the engine room. This boat was fishing during the day, and I can see some heat coming through the access door here. This is a 55 Viking. This is the digital picture here. Some thermal cameras will also take digital images. If you're providing professional inspections, I would recommend that you use a separate digital camera. Most thermal cameras only have visible resolutions up to 5 megapixels. So that camera right there has a 5 megapixel digital camera on it. And it does take a decent image, but my cell phone takes more megapixels than even the Cadillac thermal imager from Fluke or from FLIR. The greatest resolution you're going to find is about 5 megapixel on the digital camera. So if you're providing professional reports for your customers, I do recommend that you use a separate digital camera. The digital camera that's built into an infrared system is more of a visible reference. It takes a low resolution digital picture, but it's not crystal clear. And I would recommend again that you use something different just for the digital picture. And you want to stand in the same location when you take both images from your camera and from your infrared system. So here I'm looking at a rudder, and there's a temperature difference here from 49 to 39 degrees. Again, I've got a 10-degree temperature difference here. And that was verified as moisture.
Now, how come we can see the gravel through the rudder in the lower right-hand corner?
That's not through the rudder.
Here you can see the gravel, but that's not the rudder there. The rudder comes down at an angle like this right here. But yeah, that is good. You are thinking thermally. You do want to consider what you're seeing in the image.
And then also picture-to-picture.
It is a picture-in-picture, yes.
That's what you're seeing in it.
Yeah.
It's a picture-to-picture. Because look around the perimeter, you see the rock, and you see the surface of the outline of the rudder. So it's picture-to-picture.
This is the mothball fleet in the James River, just outside of Norfolk. But with the cameras, you have the ability to do picture-in-picture viewing for the ones that take digital images. And it doesn't matter which one you're using when you're scanning, because you can use the software that comes with the equipment to go from either picture-in-picture to a full screen setup.
Should the Nautilus be a little brighter in that one?
I'm sorry?
Should the Nautilus be a little bit brighter in that picture?
Well, was it running recently? Yeah. You can also do what's called fusion. I can video blend the visible image to the thermal image, and that's something that a lot of Fluke cameras are promoting. That's there. And what the FLIR cameras will do is what's called MSX Enhancement, and that takes visual edges from the image and adds them into the thermal. Both Fluke and FLIR have free software that comes with their cameras that you can download off the internet. Let me go. Here I've got a boat on a lift. This image was taken by a FLIR E5. And if I turn off the MSX, I just see the thermal. But when I turn on the MSX enhancement, you can see how it adds visual details or visible lines into the thermal image. So that's what the feature turned on, and that's what the feature turned off. So again, it's extracting details from the digital image and laying them into the thermal. And that's something that only the FLIR cameras can do.
But if you're out of focus a little bit, that MSX line will be askew a little bit. So
that is correct.
That's the only problem with the 360s I found is that you don't get your line of whack, the line will be out of whack.
That is correct.
In focus in the software.
You got to, what's there.
If you have an image that has a lot of depth to it, like this one, when you're focusing an infrared image, what's in focus at 10 feet away will be out of focus at 20 feet away. So when you have two optic systems, an infrared and a digital camera, focusing on one target, they will eventually crisscross each other. It's what's called parallax in the industry. You want to try and position yourself so that everything in your image is the same distance away from the camera, and you'll get better alignment in those conditions.
But you can put it back in focus in a sleuth software.
You can adjust the alignment, but when the camera lays the edges over the thermal, it will be skewed at one distance and in focus at another. So you kind of have to pick a focal point and adjust that alignment. Or you could just turn the feature off using the software program and see the thermal image without the alignment, or I'm sorry, without the edge detection. But I can also do picture-in-picture on the FLIR software. I can do the fusion blending from the visible to the infrared. And I can see the MSX detailing as well.
Question.
Yes.
Which FLIR cameras have the capability of doing that, both digital and as far as the E6, 8?
They all have that capability. The E4, 5, 6, and 8 all have that capability. Yes. Even the FLIR 1, the cell phone, they can also do it. Much of a bow thruster here that I wanted to show you. I don't think I got to talk to you about this one yet. Here I'm looking at the bow thruster on the boat, and as the boat is heating again, you can see the moisture lagging behind in temperature.
Eric, are you mostly using ambient conditions, or are you introducing heat?
I'm introducing heat.
Inside or outside?
Inside. I have seen papers that people have written where they use blow torches, like shrink wrapping blow torches. Have you ever seen somebody shrink wrap a boat where they get like a propane torch, it's like a flamethrower, and blow it at the shrink wrap to get it to change shape and size? I honestly, I would be scared of shooting the side of a customer's boat with a flamethrower like that. But, I prefer to use space heaters, oil-filled space heaters, or liquid-type space heaters, and putting that down inside the boat for a period of 24 hours prior to the inspection to inject heat into the structure.
So you open up all the cabinetry, moving all the soft goods and stuff that they build just to make sure that the plug fans in these areas?
Yeah, I would put one in like the living quarters and one down in the engine room, and let those heat the boat from the inside out prior to the inspection. And then when you're imaging from the outside, you do want to still be aware of things like sunlight, wind, and rain.
John brought up to me yesterday about reflection. And I have a big, that's one thing I'm having trouble with getting used to. You know, seeing back images, seeing travel with beams, boats 3 boats away.
Yes.
That's something that really takes some getting used to.
When you're imaging, you want to try and stay 90 degrees perpendicular to your target surface. When you deviate from 90 degrees, it's going to make that reflection worse. So if the screen is the side of a boat, the worst place I can stand to image that is right here. The best place I can stand, if that is my boat, is directly in front of it and make a 90-degree measurement, and that will help minimize the reflection. But if you're looking at things that are polished or metals that are stainless, then you can either modify them with a small piece of duct tape, or you can use arid extra dry deodorant powder. Those are known methods of enhancing the emissivity of the surface. But anything polished is going to show you a reflection.
Do you lose any effective imagery on the camera after a certain degree?
Yes. 45 degrees is the limit. You don't want to image below 45 degrees ever. You want to try and stay as close to 90 degrees as you can. But when you're 90 degrees in front of a boat hull, you're probably going to see your body heat reflect back at you. And if that happens, just take a half a step to the side. Your body heat will bounce back into space and not back through the optics of the camera. Did I have a question here in the background?
Oh, but you spray the stuff on the hull, so I have a painted hull, and I spray the stuff over there, kind of damage the finish. I think, yeah, that's relevant.
Yeah, that is a
spray there. But my concern was when you damage the finish because of this reflection goes back to the damage finish. So I would be hesitant to do that. The second thing you look up on the space heaters, with the oil-fired space heaters, and we're looking at carbon monoxide. When you open up and go back in, or somebody goes back in there, you have codes and flames burning.
I was talking about a different type of space heater, like one that you would use inside your home. It's liquid filled, but it doesn't actually burn the oil. Yeah, it's electric. Yeah, it's filled with oil, but not, but not actually burning.
No.
But yeah, you do want to take into consideration the finish of the boat. You don't want to damage the boat that you're inspecting. So things like duct tape might leave residue behind. In those conditions, I would recommend painter's tape or electrical tape to try and minimize any residue that may be left behind. But those are our considerations that you do want to make. I would try and image the boat without modifying the surface first. And if you think that there is still moisture there, then you would consider any effects that would be caused by modifying the surface. But anything that's polished is going to reflect. Even glass has a high emissivity, over 0.90. It's pretty close to 1, but glass is so highly polished, if you stand in front of it, you're going to see your reflection back off of it. If you've seen the show Ghost Hunters, I don't want to debunk the show, but that's what they're showing you a lot of the time on the show, is a reflection of somebody. You'll see the celebrity standing there with his camera, and when you reflect off of glass, because glass has a high emissivity around 90, you're only going to see 10% of your body back at you. So it'll look like a cold ghost. So there went the ghost. Did you see it was a blob? He went through right behind the glass, and he was so cold. When you're looking at people that are red and hot, the 10% reflection that you get off glass will be blue. But glass is actually a high emissivity. But because it's polished, it's going to reflect at you. And when you're dealing with boats, you're going to have polished, finished surfaces that you're going to want to be aware of so that you don't make an incorrect measurement. But you can see your body heat reflect even off of high emissivity surfaces that are finished. So just try and image as close to 90 degrees as you can. If you see your body heat, just change your doing that.
I've got some images from a 401, a little one that was passed around here of a hot shaft log and hot refrigeration compressors. Interesting.
That's what it's tough to say. So this is under the boat. This is in the gray scale or the black and white scale, showing you the temperature difference. This is a heat exchanger here during a hot restart. I've got 134 degrees here and 75 degrees over here. Anywhere temperature differential is meaningful, you can apply thermography. So all you need is a 1/10 of a degree temperature difference, and the cameras today can measure that difference.
The type of work we're doing is surveys. We do a lot of. As a surveyor, you've got a camera. It's under that one.
Yeah, 180 Kelvin.
We're doing static pictures. Do home detection for pictures for non-ice. I mean, what's the best dollar value? You don't need a $15,000 camera to do static shots.
That's correct. I would recommend that you spend at least $2,500 on a camera and get an E6, a clear or better. Yeah. Because an E6 has a 60 millikelvin sensor in it. It's got a good sensitivity. It's got a 120 by 160 array in it. And you don't want to go below that. You don't want to go to the 80 by 60. You don't want to go to the 150 millikelvin arrays. They can detect temperature differences, but you'll miss problems. The more you spend on a camera, the easier it's going to be to find flaws and do some surface detection. Because you're really only measuring surface temperatures with infrared. Even though you can see blood vessels or studs in the wall, you're really only measuring surface temperatures. So you really want a camera with a low thermal sensitivity. Lower numbers are going to be better.
Do you offer a level 1 course that's geared towards surveyors in this area?
The level 1 courses are broad spectrum courses. We can do a level 1 course and gear it all towards photo inspectors if we have enough photo inspectors to fill a class. We would need at least 6 people to hold a program. And we do offer programs here locally. We offer them over at Arundel Mills Mall on the other side of the airport. And we usually offer classes quarterly. You can go to a level 1 program, which is a 32-hour course. And after that course, you'll be certified as a level 1 inspector. And you can visit our website, which is on the pens or on our business card, and you can contact us and find out when our next level 1 program is going to be. And we will train you on how to use the cameras, how to take images with them, how to use the software, how to understand all the pitfalls around infrared, so that you get more bang for your dollar.
Do you recommend that for people who have not bought a camera yet?
Yes, absolutely. That way you'll understand what you're buying before you buy
With
it.
possible exception of the FLIR 1, that's cheap enough.
Yes. The FLIR 1 is $200 now. And FLIR is getting ready to introduce next quarter a FLIR 1 Pro, which is going to be 4 times the pixels. It's going to be 160 by 120, and it's going to cost $400. They're introducing that probably in a month or 2. It's called the FLIR 1 Pro. You can view it on FLIR's website. If you go to FLIR.com, you can view the FLIR 1 Pro. It's going to have a 150 millikelvin sensor in it, so it's going to be above the 100 millikelvin limit that I kind of set for you. Yes.
If you were investing the money in like the FLIR 6, and obviously technology is always changing, is that updatable or just that is what it is?
It is. And they have firmware updates, but not performance updates. You can connect the camera to a USB and a computer and update the firmware. And Fluke does the same thing with their products. You can now connect the camera to the USB to your computer and get an update on the firmware.
What do you charge for the level 1 course?
We charge $1,295 for those classes. It's 4 days long, and you get 32 hours of instruction, and there's an exam at the end of the course. It's a 100-question multiple-choice exam. You'll get a 200-page color manual that will tell you more than you ever wanted to know about infrared. And at the end of that course, you'll receive a formal certificate if you get an 80 or above on the exam. The exam is like the bar exam for attorneys. If you fail the exam, you just have to take it again. Just keep taking it pretty fast.
Does anybody know, perhaps Randy knows, I assume that counts for credits?
You get 100 usable credit for 32 hours.
But we do offer those classes here locally, or by Arundel Mills Mall. Yes.
Does every upgrade services for trade-ins and upgrade them?
Sure. We sell used equipment. We do take cameras and trade and offer discounts on purchases. Yes.
Yeah, they do.
It's been an experience, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for instance, that camera right there is one that we took in trade, and it is for sale.
For the package stuff.
That one's about $3,000. But the original sticker price on it is $45,000. That camera is also 10 years old.
That was a clear P60.
Yeah, that's a P65. I went over my time a little bit.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Once you can use it on for a while. Like I used my first one for a year and a half, and then I just got a newer model in my hand. And that was wow. Yeah.
Oh, it's good that they had that trade, at least you don't have much you don't use.
That's right.
For the Fluke product line, I would recommend the TIS series from Fluke. And the TIS series looks like this. The TI 10, 20, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, and now they have a 75 version.
It'll download to your computer.
Yep, and that will Bluetooth right into your phone, and you can take an image, send it right into your smartphone, and do an instant report right on your phone.
I could send an image to Eric to ask him to interpret it if I needed it from my camera.
If you're looking at this product line, I would recommend a TIS 40 or above. A TIS 40 is $3,000 from Fluke. It has a thermal sensitivity of 90 millikelvin and gives you a 160 by 120 image. So you will get a good sensitivity. The TIS 20 and TIS 10 are a little bit low on performance. The TIS 20 is 100 millikelvin, but the resolution is below 160 by 120, and the TIS 10 is a 150 millikelvin sensor, which would be more similar to the cell phone module that we have here. But we are authorized distributors for both FLIR and Fluke, and we can discount those prices for you. So if you are considering a camera, just shoot us an email or give us a phone call, and we'll give you a very competitive quote. And if you're also looking for training, just give us a call, and we'll let you know when our next certification course is. For anyone who is already level 1 certified, we have a course coming up in about 8 days. Not this Monday, but next Monday, we're having a local course here if any of you are looking for level 2 certification. There are only 3 levels of certification. Level 1 is 32 hours, level 2 is 32 hours, and level 3 is only 3 days. So if anyone is already level 1 and is looking for level 2, you can contact us. We still do have seats available in that program.
Are they all the same price?
Yes, they're all the same price. $1,295, yes. Okay, yeah, I'll wrap it up. Again, if any of you guys have additional questions, my email address is on the business card. You can shoot me an email. And thank you again for your time. And
but almost everybody in the room except for really, 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 really,